It's
Do you
fine.
want to use that one?
No, it's fine. I'll run home and get my phone.
He gave me his burner.
And everybody's going to be
Which, by the
so
way, get
prepared
rid of that.
for the teaching team meeting on Thursday that it's not even going to matter if I'm not as prepared as I normally am. Right? All right.
All right, you ready?
Yes.
All right, I have.
Listen to you for a couple minutes and then out.
And then you are out. Oh, Michael's leaving us. I'm nervous.
I'm used to it. He always
I
bails.
should be used to it, but it hurts every
It
time.
actually makes me nervous when he doesn't bail.
Because
Because then I
you
think
feel like
something's
wrong. Yeah, that's good. All right, well, let's do it. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Big Idea Podcast. My name is Eric Bramlett. I am joined by...
Tammy Melchien.
How you doing today, Tammy?
All right.
You doing all right?
Yeah, feel a little overwhelmed, but
You know what? You're going
it's
to
just
be
because
fine.
the map I wrote is like 45 pages long.
It's less of a map and more of a treatise, but I'm excited. It wouldn't be this vast if it was double-sided for us
Don't
as
throw
a paper
Sherry
copy.
under the bus.
No, I mean, but it's still got
Yeah.
some girth.
It
There's
does
no
have
doubt
some
about
great.
it.
It's week 2. You'll see.
Yeah. So we are talking about relationship goals. That is the name of this series, and it is 4 weeks of good stuff that's really, really helpful for our attenders. This is definitely one of those in the felt need category, where these are the things that in their relationships they're trying to work on, that they would say out
You're
loud.
saying
This is their stuff.
they as if it's not you, too.
Well, I didn't notice that denial was one of them. If it was, then it would have included me too.
All those people need to work on their relationships. Huh?
This is honestly, these are my favorite series because I always have something to learn, Tammy.
Okay.
Just so you know.
All right.
I'm just trying to separate myself from other people.
You're just trying not to cry during this.
I'm trying not to cry.
Okay, let's get into it.
All right, so let's talk about the overall series. Where are we headed? What's going on?
Okay, so it is a relationship series, and I think maybe the way that we'll hook into that is using this, where Jesus says that the greatest 2 commandments are to love God and to love others. And so the 2 most important things in life are relationships, relationship with God and relationship with others. And so you guys came up with the great hook relationship goals for this. And so we're going to be thinking about what our goals are for our relationships in this series. But then, ultimately, hopefully each week we'll figure out a way to tag it back into how it's our relationship with God that provides the foundation for us to then grow in all of those other relationships.
All right,
All right.
I love it. So week 1, then, we're talking about connection goals.
Connection goals, because each week has a C title, but connection
course.
goals is about, really this message is going to center on vulnerability and, this longing that we have to have relationships that are more than just surface, the hi, how are you doing today kind of things.
Busy,
Not that that's
fine.
Yeah.
I forgot my phone, stuff like that.
But how we long for deeper connections, to be known and to know people, and but that vulnerability is the key to that, and vulnerability tends to be something that many of us resist, which then keeps us from having those deeper connections in relationships. And so we're going to talk about vulnerability this week, and hopefully some kind of practical baby steps for some people towards that, and maybe some more challenging steps for others to go deeper in the relationships.
And I mean, we got Brene Brown, we got C.S. Lewis. Lots of people wrote some really good stuff about vulnerability that we'll be able to share.
Yep. And looking again at the Genesis account of, it's interesting in Genesis 2, in the creation count there, it talks about how Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed, which that's kind of like a picture of vulnerability and being okay with that. It was the way we were designed.
Right.
But then it's like after the fall, they begin to hide.
Yes, and shame sets in
Yes.
immediately.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that shuts down the vulnerability.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. All right, very
All right.
good. Now, one question I have about this series, like as we're talking about relationships, I mean, do you feel like the teaching will sort of set up the different categories of relationships? Like, are we talking about our friendships? Are we talking about our marriage? Are we talking about our, close, our family unit, our siblings? Like, or are we saying it can apply for all? Like, or is there a point of view that we're really trying to sell?
I think you want to help people think about their closest relationships. Okay, whatever they would determine that. Week 4 of the series, we are going to zero in specifically on marriage.
Okay.
But for the first 3 weeks, but really, yeah, I mean, I think it'll be no matter where people are at, whatever kind of their closest relationship structure is, I think it'll be applicable.
Okay, great,
them.
great. All right, so that's week 1, vulnerability, but that doesn't start with C, so we call it connection. And then we've got conflict.
Conflict goals.
It doesn't seem like we should have conflict goals,
Oh, but we
right?
should.
We should have goals for no conflict.
No, not really.
Oh, well, set me straight on that,
Because,
Tammy.
conflict is sometimes the most unhealthy thing in our relationships is when we just avoid conflict. Because then we just bury stuff and we don't deal with it. So in this, in the big idea, conflict's not something to avoid. It's an opportunity to follow Jesus in the way of being a peacemaker. And so it's like conflict is not to be avoided, it's to be worked through, I think is the idea there. So this message, which takes up a bulk of this giant map, we actually found a message from Woodland Hills that we felt like was pretty strong on this, that walked through this you'll see on the pages here, the conflict cycle and then the remedy to that. And when we were planning the map, we just liked a lot of that content. I don't know if we'll be able to, we're probably going to have to trim it down in terms
Sure.
of, I don't know if we'll be able to talk about, I think
I'd like to read the whole thing for us right now. If
Well,
I
you could.
That would be great.
Maybe I should just see what the word count is, and this might be the talk. But, they had like 5 things in the cycle and then 5 remedies. I don't know that we may have to look at how do we combine some of those things.
Sure, sure.
But I think a lot of the content for this is here in the map that we're going to look at that. So hopefully, in this one, when people think about, the relationships that they're in that are experiencing some tension, or maybe are even in open conflict, hopefully we can give some people tools here about what it looks like to be a peacemaker working through that, and not someone who avoids it, not someone who escalates it,
Right.
not someone who carries resentments forward in it.
And it seems like, there's a little bit of a hint of this here, but, it also seems like there are probably some differences between this tactic and something where maybe, like it talked about, turning the other cheek is not the same as being a doormat. Kind of that there are probably some ways in which this is applicable in what, for all practical purposes, is a healthy relationship. But there might be some situations that are not healthy
Yes.
in which this wouldn't apply.
Which I'm sure we'll have some disclaimers about that
Gotcha.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then do you feel like it's really going to land in this forgiveness realm, or?
I think all of, because these 5 things here are the kind of the flip side of the 5 things in the cycle. Like, for
Gotcha.
example, let me just look at one of them. One of the things that sends us in this conflict cycle is that this feeling of rights. Like, when we feel like someone has stepped on our right in some way, and then that
triggers.
that can kind of trigger us into the cycle. Whereas, Jesus teach us, deny yourself,
Right.
take up your, and
Right.
so in some ways, what does it look like to say, you know what, I'm going to kind of let go of my right there, and I'm going to consider what the other person needs or wants as important as myself. And, so
Yeah.
it's like each one of these things is the opposite to the thing
Sure.
that tends to suck us into
the antidote,
conflict.
as it were.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, that's, in a relationship standpoint, that's probably one of my favorite places to live, is in that exploration of how to navigate through
Yeah.
conflict and how to find forgiveness and how to be selfless. And all of that is huge, huge, huge. Good stuff for relationships. All right, then that takes us to week 3, communication goals. And this is also the is it an American tradition or is it worldwide? Mother's Day.
Mother's Day? I don't know.
Either way, it's something that feels relatively unavoidable on a Sunday morning, and so we're going to embrace that.
You were wanting to avoid your mom on a Sunday morning, or?
No, I don't want to. No, but it's like, I'd be fine with this for Father's Day too, but it's like maybe we just decide we don't have to mention it.
Yeah.
Like, is it possible that we would ever see a day on a Sunday where we felt like we could, but we also felt like we didn't have to mention it?
Probably could happen on Father's Day.
It's probably happened.
It probably happens on Father's Day.
So anyway, the point is, it's Mother's Day on that day.
Yeah, which tends to be a big attendance day.
Yes.
So, yes, and we were talking about communication goals on this one. And so this is, nothing, probably few things can wreak havoc in a relationship than not communicating well, miscommunicating. And so we're going to be looking at this with a focus on what does it look like to really be a good listener to others. And so the centerpiece story for this, we're going to look at Jesus in the blind beggar. And so Jesus, how he, some of the things you see in that story that enabled him to communicate well with this guy was once he stopped, even though he was like in the middle of something, he stopped and gave his full attention. He asked a good question. He didn't just assume that he knew. He didn't make assumptions about what this person wanted or was trying to say. And then I also see he responded, and there was a lot of affirmation in his response. And so, if you can't tell, this is the one that I've already prepared a little bit for.
Yeah. I feel like it's.
So
I
I think we're looking at that, and what does that look like for us to do that? We can look at some of the barriers that keep us from being people that communicate well with one another. And so again, I think we want some practical takeaways to walk out of this of, okay, what could I practice this week in order to be better at communication in my most important relationships?
And to listen to my mother.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
We figured moms would like that on that day.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah.
That's a big win. All right, and then we wrap up the series on week 4 with commitment goals.
Yes, and so we wanted to land this series with a week where we're specifically looking at marriage, talking about that a little bit more directly. And when we were planning it, I think it was John Ferguson who said, if I had 1 week on marriage, I would address conflict. We're like, we already did that. So then he said, and then my second choice would be to really go talk about love languages. And we haven't done that in a long time.
Oh, nice.
It's like familiar to some people. It'll, but I feel like the 5 love languages, it's kind of like, even if you know what they are, it's always like, there's always a realigning to intentionality in that anytime you talk about that.
Yeah.
And so right now, that's what we're planning to do. We're planning to, build this around the 5 love languages and what does it look like with your significant other to really be intentional about that. And we actually do have a message that's from like 12 years ago on that we might be taking a look at, and it uses actually the story of Jacob and Rachel as an illustration of the love languages in their relationship.
That's interesting.
So,
I think that might have been the one that Chrissy and I gave together, if that's possible.
might have been. Well, Dave and Sue Ferguson are going to write this messess together, so
there you go.
we'll see what happens.
Chances are good. I think the love languages thing is so important because I think at face value, it starts you thinking about yourself because you start thinking about what your love languages are. But I think that if you can make that turn to really encourage that person in that committed relationship to focus on the love languages of the other, then that changes the game for everything. And you start really moving from a selfish thing into something that can be selfless and more like what Jesus wants us to do.
And I haven't looked through the research yet. We were trying to find options where, is there a way is there something online that we could take really quickly in the service, even for people that maybe don't know what theirs is.
Gotcha.
So we'll see how that shakes out.
All right. Very good. I think it's a great series. I'm looking forward to it, and it's definitely one where you want to encourage our attenders to invite their friends because there's something for everybody with it. All right. Anything we're leaving out?
I don't think so.
All right. Happy Mother's Day, everyone, and thanks for joining us at the Big Idea Podcast. We'll see you later.
See ya.